All right, let's dive into the WiredScore Insights 2025 report. We're going to unpack some fascinating trends about buildings and what all this means for you.
Yeah, so WiredScore basically rates buildings. They rate them on how good their digital connectivity is and also their smart technology. And this report that we're looking at today is all about how technology can shape our experience in these spaces, in these buildings. And the really cool thing is it's based on data from over 1 billion square feet of real estate across 41 countries,
Wow, 41 countries, that's a lot.
which means we're getting insights from buildings where 8 million people live and work.
8 million people, that's a massive amount of data. Okay, let's get into it. So one of the things the report really highlights is this whole changing landscape of work. We've all seen it, right? The rise of working from home, hybrid models. It's like we're constantly rethinking what an office, even IS these days. But the question is, can buildings really adapt to this new way of working?
Yeah, that's the big question everyone's asking. And the report, it finds this really interesting trend. Globally, offices score 90% on internet provision, but only 40% on mobile performance.
Wow, that's a big difference.
Huge gap.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so you might have great internet access at the office, but then your mobile phone just doesn't work as well.
Oh, it's so frustrating. I've definitely been there. What causes that, you think?
Well, it seems like part of it is just like regional differences. Some areas are just way ahead of the curve, like the Middle East and Asia Pacific. Those areas are leading the way on internet and mobile performance.
That makes sense when you think about Dubai, right? Like all the businesses there. The report mentioned Dubai alone saw a 30% increase in active businesses last year.
Wow.
And in that kind of environment, in that kind of competitive environment, you need top-notch connectivity.
Oh, totally.
Imagine trying to close a deal or pitch a client, and your mobile connection keeps dropping out.
Oh, it'd be a disaster.
Total disaster.
Yeah, and you know what? It really shows how important reliable mobile performance is, not just for us, for individuals, but for entire economies.
It's true. It's true. So if the Middle East and Asia Pacific are doing so well, what about North America, the UK, Europe?
Yeah, so those places are lagging behind a bit, especially when it comes to mobile connectivity.
Why is that? Are we just slow to adapt?
Well, there are a few reasons, I think. A lot of older buildings, they have outdated wiring,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just hard for them to keep up with, the demands of modern connectivity.
That makes sense.
And then there's also the planning regulations. Sometimes they're just outdated and they can make it hard to install new infrastructure.
Interesting. So for the people listening, what's the takeaway here? Should they be worried about having bad mobile connection at work?
Well, it depends on where they work.
Hmm.
But this report, it really shows how crucial seamless connectivity is in our world, which is, increasingly mobile.
Yeah.
And it highlights that we need to really think about what a smart building really means.
Yeah.
It's not just about having all this fancy technology, right?
Mhm.
It's about making sure that tech actually makes things better for the people using the building.
It's about making our lives easier, not harder. Okay, we've talked about connectivity. Let's talk about something else the report mentions. Data. Now, I'll admit, sometimes when I hear the word data, my brain kind of switches off.
Oh, yeah, data can sound a little boring,
A little dry.
but it's actually super important. It's like the key to making buildings better for everyone.
Really?
Think of it this way. Data is like a language that buildings use to talk to us.
That's an interesting way to think about it.
And the more we understand that language, the better we can make those buildings work for us.
Oh, yeah, I'm listening.
So the report actually found that buildings are getting better at managing their data. Back in 2021, the average score for data management systems in office buildings was 63%. But now it's jumped up to 77%.
That's a big improvement.
It is.
What do you think is causing that?
I think people are starting to realize that data isn't just about numbers and spreadsheets. It's about understanding how people actually use buildings, how they interact with spaces. And when you use data the right way, it can help create a more personalized building experience, like a building that really responds to your needs.
So it's not just about collecting data, it's about using it in a smart way. Could you give an example? Like, how could this data actually benefit someone listening right now?
Sure. Imagine a building that knows your preferences, like your ideal temperature or how bright you like the lights. And it adjusts those things for you automatically as soon as you walk in the door.
Oh, wow, that would be amazing.
Right.
It would be like having a personal concierge. But I'm guessing not every building is doing this well.
You're right.
What did the report say about regional differences?
Well, as with connectivity, you see some areas that are ahead of the game. The Asia Pacific region and the Middle East. They're doing great with data management.
It seems like they're ahead in a lot of these areas.
Yeah, probably because they have a lot of newer buildings. Buildings that were designed with data in mind from the start.
Makes sense. But what about North America and Europe?
Well, they're lagging a bit behind.
Again, why do you think that is?
I mean, they have access to the same technology,
Hmm.
but it seems like it just takes longer to adopt and implement new things. They have a lot of older buildings, as we
Yeah.
talked about, and sometimes the regulations can be more complex, so it just slows things down.
So it's not just about the technology itself. It's about having the right infrastructure and regulations in place. Okay, here's something I found really interesting. The report said that mid-sized buildings, those between 100,000 and 400,000 square feet, they're actually doing the best with data management.
Oh, it's interesting.
It seems kind of counterintuitive. You'd think the larger buildings would have more resources.
Yeah, you'd think so. But maybe it's actually harder to manage data in a really big building.
That's what I was thinking.
Imagine a huge skyscraper with tons of tenants trying to collect data from all those different people and then use it in a way that makes sense for everyone. It could be a nightmare.
A logistical nightmare.
Whereas in a smaller building, it might be easier to get everyone on the same page.
So maybe bigger isn't always better.
Yeah, sometimes smaller buildings can be more agile.
More adaptable. But what about the people who work in those big buildings? Is there anything they can do to improve the situation?
Well, I think the key is collaboration. Landlords and tenants need to work together.
That makes sense.
If landlords are transparent about how they're using data and tenants are willing to share their needs and preferences, then even a really complex building can become more responsive to the people using it.
So it's about building trust and working together to create a better experience for everyone.
Exactly.
And that leads us to another important topic, the sense of community.
Yeah, that's a big one.
We've talked a lot about the functional aspects of buildings, but buildings are more than just structures, right? They're social spaces.
Right.
And as technology becomes more integrated into these spaces, it's important to think about how it can be used to foster a sense of community rather than isolating people further.
Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? How do you find the right balance between technology and human connection? And the report shows that building owners are starting to think about this more. They're starting to prioritize well-being alongside all the technological advancements.
So it's not just about having the latest gadgets, it's about creating spaces where people actually feel good.
Exactly. The report found that the average score for well-being features in buildings is now 80%.
That's great.
We're seeing more buildings incorporate things like smart lighting systems, systems that mimic natural daylight, and air quality sensors that create a healthier environment.
I like that.
And they're often combining those features with more traditional amenities, like gyms, green spaces, and wellness centers.
So it's a holistic approach,
Right.
blending technology and design to create a better experience for people.
Exactly.
It sounds like a recipe for a happy and productive work environment.
It does, doesn't it? And it's not just about well-being. Safety and security are also really important, especially as buildings become more complex and interconnected.
Yeah, you have to think about the potential vulnerabilities. With all this smart building technology, did the report talk about cybersecurity?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
They highlighted a 10% year-on-year increase in the focus on cybersecurity, which makes sense. The more reliant buildings become on all these interconnected systems, the more vulnerable they become to cyber attacks.
So building owners have a lot to think about these days.
They do. It's a lot to juggle. They have to embrace the benefits of technology, but also figure out how to manage the risks.
It's a balancing act.
It is.
This makes me think about my own workplace. Do I feel a sense of community there? How much of a role does technology play in shaping that experience?
These reports are really good for making you think about these things, aren't they?
They are.
They make you look at your own environment with a fresh perspective.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about. We've covered so much ground already. Connectivity, data, community, and there's still so much more to explore in this report.
There is. We've only just scratched the surface. Next, we'll be diving into some really interesting trends related to branding, technology investment, and the rise of AI in real estate.
Can't wait. Sounds like a deep dive worth taking. Stay tuned, everyone. So we've talked about how buildings need to adapt, to all the changes in how we work these days. And we talked about how important data is in all of that. But what about a building's image, their brand? It's not something I usually think about with buildings, but the report makes it seem like branding is becoming a bigger and bigger deal.
Yeah, it's a really interesting shift that's happening. After the pandemic, landlords are realizing they have to work harder, to attract and keep tenants.
Right.
And having a strong brand can really help them stand out, Think about it this way. Would you rather live in a building that feels kind of generic and boring,
No.
or one that has a unique identity, a set of values that you actually connect with?
The second one, for sure.
Exactly. And now that people have so many more choices about where they work and live, branding is even more important for buildings.
That makes sense. But how does a building actually cultivate a brand? Is it just about flashy marketing?
It's definitely more than that. It's
Yeah.
about the whole experience, the design of the building, the amenities, the technology, and especially the relationship between the landlord and the tenants.
So it's about creating a certain feeling.
Yeah, and making sure that feeling is consistent no matter which building you're in.
Do you have an example of a company that's doing this well?
Yeah, the report mentions Derwent, a real estate company in the UK. They've done a really good job of combining distinctive design with a seamless tech experience across their entire portfolio.
So tenants know what to expect.
Exactly. They know that any Derwent building they choose is going to offer a certain level of quality.
That's interesting. So you're saying technology can actually help strengthen the relationship between landlords and tenants.
Absolutely. Landlords are starting to use technology to get real-time insights about their tenants
Oh, that's smart.
so they can be more responsive to their needs and create a more personalized experience.
So, like, what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, imagine getting customized building updates, booking amenities through an app, having easy access to building management, all tailored to your specific needs.
It's kind of like those personalized recommendations you get when you're shopping online.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's that same concept applied to the built environment.
I like it. It seems like it would make things a lot easier.
It would. And it wouldn't just enhance the tenant experience, it could also help create a stronger sense of community within the building.
That's cool. But let's be real for a second. All this tech integration, the data management, the smart amenities, the personalized experiences, it can't be cheap.
You're right, it's definitely a big investment, especially with the economy the way it is right now. But the thing is, landlords can't afford to ignore technology anymore because the world is changing. Everything is becoming more tech-driven.
That's true.
And there are two big forces pushing the real estate industry towards tech adoption: climate change and tenant expectations.
Okay, let's break those down.
First, climate change. Buildings are responsible for a huge chunk of global carbon emissions. So we need to make them smarter and more efficient if we want to hit our sustainability goals.
That makes sense.
And then there are tenant expectations. People want more from their buildings these days. They want healthy spaces, engaging spaces, technologically advanced spaces.
So landlords are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, kind of. They need to invest in tech to stay competitive and meet their sustainability targets. But the cost can be a real barrier.
So what can they do?
Well, the good news is there are examples out there that show it's possible, that tech investment can pay off in the long run.
Tell me more.
The report highlights One Bangkok in Thailand and the Henderson Building in Hong Kong. Both of those buildings have seen significant energy savings thanks to their investments in smart technology.
Wow, that's impressive.
And imagine if that became the norm.
What if we started measuring a building's success based on its sustainability and how well it meets the needs of its tenants, not just on its financial performance?
That would be a huge shift. It would change the way we think about buildings altogether.
It's a really interesting idea. Okay, so we've talked about data, branding, sustainability, all these different trends that are shaping the future of buildings. But there's one big topic we haven't touched on yet: AI. We can't talk about the future without talking about artificial intelligence, can we?
Definitely not. AI is already having a huge impact on so many industries, and real estate is no exception.
I find AI fascinating, but also a little bit scary, to be honest. Where do you think AI is going to have the biggest impact in the real estate world?
Well, one area where it's already showing a lot of promise is in optimizing energy consumption.
Oh, that's great for sustainability.
Exactly. AI can analyze all the data coming from a building systems and identify patterns and inefficiencies that humans might miss. And then it can make adjustments to reduce energy waste.
So it's like having a super efficient building manager.
Exactly. And AI can also be really helpful in the design process. Architects and engineers are using AI-powered tools to speed up their work, create more efficient layouts, generate 3D models.
Wow, so AI can impact the entire building lifecycle,
It can.
from design to construction to operation. But with all these amazing capabilities, I can't help but wonder about the role of humans. Can AI really replace the expertise and intuition of architects, engineers, building managers?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the report is very clear on this point. Buildings are ultimately about people.
Right.
And while AI can definitely help us do things better and faster,
Hmm.
it can't replace the human touch, at least not yet.
That's reassuring. We still need that human connection, that understanding of people's needs and preferences that AI hasn't quite mastered.
Exactly.
So is AI a friend or foe in the world of real estate?
I think it has the potential to be a really powerful ally, but we need to be thoughtful about how we use it. We need to make sure that it's enhancing the human experience, not replacing it.
That's a really important point. It's all about finding the right balance between human ingenuity and technological advancement.
Yeah.
But what happens when we reach the point of artificial general intelligence? When AI becomes as smart as humans or even surpasses us? How will that change the way we design and build and interact with our buildings?
It's a big question, and I don't think anyone has the answer yet, but it's something we need to start thinking about now.
Because the future is closer than we think.
It is.
Okay, let's bring things back down to earth for a minute. We've talked a lot about buildings, but what about the spaces between them? Parks, plazas, streetscapes, all that.
The public realm.
Yeah, those spaces are so important.
They really are.
They're what makes cities livable and enjoyable.
And the report has a whole section dedicated to the future of the public realm. It's not just about making these spaces look pretty. It's about making them functional, efficient, and enjoyable for people.
So how does technology fit into all of that?
Well, we're seeing some really cool examples of how technology is being used to transform public spaces.
Like what?
There's a development in Dubai called Gaffwoods. It's run by a company called Majid Al Futam. And they've integrated smart technology into every aspect of the public realm there.
Wow, so it's not just about adding Wi-Fi and digital signs.
No, it's much more than that. They have a whole network of sensors that collect real-time data on everything, from traffic patterns to environmental conditions.
That's amazing.
And they use that data to optimize the use of public resources, improve safety, enhance the experience for everyone.
So it's like having a digital brain managing the public realm?
Exactly. Making sure everything runs smoothly and efficiently.
I love that idea.
And the benefits go beyond just convenience and efficiency. This data-driven approach can help create public spaces that are more sustainable, resilient, and human-centric.
It's about using technology to make cities better places to live.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder what public spaces will be like in 10 or 20 years.
It does, doesn't it?
Will they be these seamlessly integrated, tech-enabled environments that respond to our every need?
It's definitely a possibility. But we also need to be mindful of the potential downsides. We need to make sure that everyone has access to these technologies and that we're protecting people's privacy.
Those are important considerations. We don't want to create a world where only some people benefit from these advancements.
Exactly.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to talk specifically about the U.S. real estate market.
Sure.
It's been struggling lately, right? With the slow return to the office and the economic uncertainty.
Yeah, there have definitely been some challenges.
What does the report say about the future of the U.S. market?
Well, it acknowledges the challenges, but it's actually pretty optimistic. It suggests that 2025 could be a turning point for the U.S.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, there are a few reasons for that. Deloitte did a survey that showed real estate companies are feeling more confident about the future, which means they're more likely to invest in technology.
So we could see some innovation happening.
Exactly. And a lot of that innovation is focused on the tenant experience.
So U.S. landlords are realizing they need to up their game.
They are. They're putting more emphasis on creating amenity-rich spaces that prioritize well-being and productivity.
So it's not just about providing a place to work anymore.
No, it's about creating a destination, a place where people actually want to be.
Do you have an example of a building that's doing this well?
Yeah, the report mentions Skanska's 17LM building in Washington, D.C.
What's special about that building?
They've really focused on creating a tenant-centric experience. They have a building app that lets tenants do all sorts of things, like order food, book meeting rooms, connect with other tenants, receive building updates.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, and it seems to be working. The report said that 17XM had really good pre-leasing success.
So people are willing to pay more for a better experience.
It seems that way.
That's a good lesson for U.S. landlords.
It is. Focus on the tenant experience and make sure you're getting the tech fundamentals right. Things like seamless connectivity, robust data management, and tech-enabled amenities.
So it's not just about having the latest and greatest technology.
No, it's about using technology strategically to create a better experience for the people who use the building.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. connectivity, data, AI, even the future of public spaces. What do you think is the biggest takeaway from this report?
For me, it all comes back to this idea of making buildings more human-centric.
Yeah.
It's not just about functionality anymore. It's about creating spaces that really support people, their well-being, their productivity, even their sense of community.
And it seems like technology is a huge part of making that happen.
It is. We're seeing it everywhere, in individual buildings, in whole cities.
It's really raising the bar for what we expect from our built environment.
Totally.
And the report gave us some amazing examples, too, like buildings that adjust to your preferences automatically,
Oh, yeah, those are cool.
or public spaces that use data to optimize resources and keep people safe.
It's pretty incredible stuff.
It makes you wonder what's next, What will buildings be like in 10, 20 years?
It's exciting to think about. Technology is changing so fast, the possibilities are almost endless.
But we have to be careful, too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Technology is a tool,
It is.
and it's up to us to use it responsibly, to make sure it benefits everyone.
Exactly.
We need to think about things like equity, privacy, digital inclusion.
Those are all really important issues.
This deep dive has given me a lot to think about. It's not just about buildings, It's
Yes.
about how they impact our lives, our communities, our planet.
It's all connected.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the WiredScore Insights 2025 report. Hopefully this has sparked some ideas for you, maybe even some inspiration. We've explored some amazing trends and possibilities, but ultimately, it's up to all of us to imagine the future we want and to fight for the changes that will make that future a reality.
Well said.
So to everyone listening, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep diving deep into the things that matter to you. Until next time.